Hi, Karl.
Hi, Dragan. Good to see you.
Same here. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now in these COVID times, of course, and some moments that we haven't expected or different times. So
Yes, the magic word of COVID. It's like everyone is using it at the moment. But I'm also looking at the blessing of COVID, on top of everything. Yes, I believe in the blessing of COVID. And I mean, it made me, look into things a bit differently and also gave me some time that I didn't have in my hands before, which I'm pretty happy at the moment with this. Um, we were having this weekly meetings with you, discussing our coaching practice and how the business is going at our end. So I was thinking, why don't we move them online and enrich people with our knowledge and experience, if I may use this. And the topic that we discussed last time is talking about our strengths. So, what is your greatest strength? Something that is supporting you at the moment.
I think my greatest strength would be listening skills. So listening to other people, being able to just focus on what they're saying and listen attentively. And it's good that you mentioned the aspect of strengths, because sometimes we overlook our strengths and we try to focus on our weaknesses to try and see how can we improve our weaknesses. However, having said that, it's always much easier to improve our strengths. Of course, not overdoing our strengths. But if we were to focus on our weaknesses, the success we will get is relatively smaller than on our strengths.
It's true. I mean, I see many people who are more like, if you ask them, especially clients, if you ask them, okay, what are your strengths? They focus on one or two, but when you ask them what are your weaknesses, the list is much bigger than what you expect for strengths. And when you start working with them, they start realizing, oh, but this is a strength, and this is a strength, and this is a strength. I never thought of it like that. Which is my greatest strength. I did
Which
a
is yours?
test.
Yes, I'm
It's the sense.
curious.
It's the sense of humor,
Okay.
and I always thought it is something else, like being, team player or something like that. And I was like, sense of humor. And then when I reflected, I realized that a lot of my life and even professional life, I used the sense of humor a lot. So I started, cherish this strength I have. What are the strengths people have? I mean, in your practice, did you notice any particular strengths that people have as strengths?
And they can come under various names, but one of them, for example, is being a perfectionist. So making sure that you do things well,
Mm-hmm.
etc. What we also need to focus and keep in mind is that sometimes if we overdo our strength, then it can be our weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, being a perfectionist, at the end of the day, we can spend 1 hour on a particular task, or we could spend 8 hours or more. But at the end of the day, it's what results do we want to achieve from that particular task. It's focusing on not needing to overdo it, doing what I really need to do in order for that particular task to achieve my ultimate objective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we get various sort of strengths. We mentioned listening, we mentioned sense of humor, we mentioned being a perfectionist. Getting the job done, I think, is another important strength, focusing on results,
Mm-hmm.
results.
Being
Uh,
creative as well. I don't know. I came across people because their core strength is to be creative. Sometimes they're finding it difficult to do a simple job without putting some form of creativity, and this makes them a bit, they're thinking, I'm not doing a good job, because that's the strength is actually start making them being weak, because some jobs you don't need to use all the creativity in the world, you just have to follow and finish it. But because they're always like looking into being more creative than they are, and sometimes they're needed, that's how your weakness can become, sorry, how your strength can become a weakness. And
that's right.
it's interesting how people underestimate their strengths, and sometimes it's sad to see this,
It is.
because
And then even when you see it from the leader perspective, as a leader, knowing what the strengths of your team is, because if we were to use the strengths of the people around us, then
Mhm.
it's like they're going to be happier in their job. I was reading a study through Gallup where they said that people who are focusing on their strengths, it's likely that they will quit their job less. So there's a 15% chance that they're going to quit their job less, so they're going to stay more in the job. They're going to be more productive in their job. They're going to be more engaged and have more fun. And of course, if that happens, then it's likely that you're going to have good work-life balance as well. You're going to enjoy work. You're going to have a more positive atmosphere and outlook to work. And you're also going to be able to relax when it's time to relax at home.
And here brings something else. I mean, how leaders recognize the strengths of their team members, of the people that they work with, because something I'm coming across very often is that due to, I don't know, culture, corporate culture, organizational culture, we're trying to put people into certain frames, and although they're doing the same jobs, we don't really nurture and cherish the individual strengths people carry with them. And if you have an employee like that you don't really understand their strengths, but mainly focus on their weaknesses, you end them with a big problem, because the person is not going to be, engaged, and they'll feel down because you're pointing out their weaknesses. So very often this comes into performance appraisal, where people are pointed their weaknesses and their achievements are acknowledged, but we focus too much on weaknesses. Once someone told me about, if you throw a ball very good with your right hand, and we ask you to do this, to practice more and more, to start doing it with your left hand, your right hand will become automatically weaker. And why we need to throw with the left hand? Can we do something else with the left hand instead of, since we're throwing the ball very good with our right hand? But we see even organizations that are focusing on developing a lot on the weaknesses instead of focusing on the strengths of their employees and team members. How do you think we can develop our strengths? Because I was reflecting a lot on this. It's not like you do a lot of push-ups and your strengths are going, bigger, and your muscles are getting, stronger.
I actually have a tool that I'm sharing on this. First of all, let's start off with the aspect of knowing your strengths. So, of course, it's good to know your own strengths, and if you know them, that's excellent. If you don't know what your strengths are, then sometimes it's a good practice as well to ask other people what they notice could potentially be your strengths. And because sometimes other people, as you mentioned, so it could be even our leaders, they see things in us that we don't see. But this tool is a very simple, practical tool, whereby within half an hour, you sit down. It's a matter of thinking of your strengths. There are an aspect of questions which support you to see and analyze further your strengths. And this leads you eventually to coming up with actions. So what actions can you take in order to improve these particular strengths? So if it comes to public speaking, what opportunities could you take on public speaking, especially in these current times? If it comes for caring for others, what role could you place now, especially in these times where people need to feel supported, to have that support from others? So coming up with, sometimes it's very simple actions, but do these actions more consistently, and that is how I think we can improve our strength. You mentioned the example of throwing a stone with your right hand or with your left hand, and that is very much how the brain works. There are these triggers. So if we keep on improving this particular part and strengthening this part, then it becomes a habit and becomes like a nature, and it's easier to do.
One of the tools I'm using with my coaching clients, sometimes once we identify, I use a set of cards with different, and ask people to identify their five core or character strengths. And I can actually post more information about this because there's a whole assessment you can take if you're interested to see your character strengths. And then I ask people to journal between coaching sessions. I mean, how they notice using their strengths and reflecting on how they can grow their strengths. And I had really good, follow-up sessions with some of my clients looking into, yes, I didn't actually think that my this particular strength is the one thing that is supporting me. I'm finding this very useful, especially with clients who suffer from burnout, a professional burnout, due to many factors, which I'm encountering a lot as a coach. But strengths come always into the concept of self-care, for example, instead of, not only for a concept of growth, but concept of self-care.
Yes, and I think the journaling exercise, which you mentioned, is an excellent tool, something which we should do not only to recognize and to realize what we did during the day and how our successes, but also to even realize what should we be thankful for. What has happened in our day, what are our successes, what are things we could do differently or better, next time.
It's a very personal and sometimes scary experience. Like I, for example, I'm afraid of doing it. I know it's very beneficial, but starting it's like I'm in front of something that I can write, and I need to write and read about my feelings and my experiences, and I'm like, oh, no, that's really scary. So this is something I need to work myself. I need to self-coach myself. Although I'm using it with the clients, and I hope how beneficial this is.
I think just like everything, it's doing that first step. So saying, I'll start today, and rather than not prolong it, I'll start tomorrow, start another day.
And you don't need to do lengthy things. Sometimes even like bullet journaling is fantastic. Good. Anything else on how you can grow your strengths? Anything that you can share from your experience, being individual growing your strengths, or any of your clients?
I think it's also being more of a, so to say, let me say the word cheerleader to yourself. That we're cheerleaders, and I don't want to see myself being a cheerleader. I don't think I have the flexibility skills and the
I myself, I wouldn't look well in the outfit. Not anymore.
Okay. However, many times we have these two voices, and the negative voice, positive voice, and maybe it's trying to ignore that negative voice, which is constantly judging us, telling us you're not good at this, you cannot do that, and focusing more on the positive. You probably have the strength to switch off that voice, and tell that voice, thank you, but I'm not going to listen to you today. I'm going to focus on this, and I think that is another way that we keep on focusing on our strengths by this self, and it probably links as well to the aspect of journaling, as you mentioned earlier, focusing on that positive aspect. What are my successes? And that you keep on trying, no matter what. It's like if you fall 6 times, you get up 7 times.
I agree with this. Sometimes we are punishing ourselves a bit more than what is necessary. Thanks. I mean, this was really insightful. I mean, probably a message that I would like to, to finish this is like, don't punish yourself, and be honest with yourself, and look into what core and character strengths you have, what makes you a good professional, a good person, and cherish this. Be aware of your weaknesses. Of course, we can't really say everything is top, and if you have to work on something, make sure that you work, but don't only focus on what is weak, because we are quite resilient people, and we carry quite a lot of strengths. We're going to post some resources in below this video, and you can find us on LinkedIn, both of us, so you see Karl's website and my profile. And if you want to get in touch with us somehow, feel free to follow any of the links. And if you have any comments, or you would like to learn something else, also write down a comment, and we'll be able to prepare something. Keep safe. Thanks, Karl.
Thank you, Dragan. Thank you for this opportunity.
And hopefully we'll meet again soon.
Excellent.